When I was a child, the visit to the doctor was a special event, and the doctor was seen in the community as a font of knowledge of all things medical. I can remember at one occasion, the doctor had cause to look something up in a book. There was nothing wrong with this. However, my mother did not like the fact that when she got home, she witheringly said to my father, "He looked up a book." These days, we accept not only books, but the internet as well. Today, we hold our GPs as just one essential member of our community. Bringing to them an array of medical problems ranging from what might be just called simple flu to increasingly complex medical situations. Although we no longer hold the GP in quite the same high regard as the earlier periods, now present with an ever-widening number of symptoms and diseases, expecting that the same GP to have the widest possible knowledge of a huge range of medical conditions. Their treatment, not a simple task. And while the transition from books to computer, access to new facilities, and the computerization of medical practice, automating many tasks, does not fill the role of GP, trained to immediately recognize the whole range of symptoms that a patient presents. One of the most important people with whom I have regular contact is my GP. Following on from my stairway accident at Oxford in '78, my body has led me down a spiral of paths of many fronts, and my GP is definitely overworked. For most of my life, my health has been variable, and I've always had a propensity for infection. Since that accident, infection and its management have played an important role in my medical history and prognosis. Coming home from England in '79, I resumed living in the Hawke's Bay. But within a year, I had moved to Auckland, seeking a medical advice as to where to from here. At that stage, I did not have a GP, dealing mainly with my orthopedic surgeon. The decision was made to fuse the right hip by means of an arthrodesis, although many of his colleagues did not universally agree with that decision. All went well, but within 3 months of the arthrodesis, it collapsed, and I was back in hospital in Auckland for many months. I can remember I cried on that occasion. I was all out back home eventually, and I registered with a local medical practice. I needed to visit a medical centre on a semi-regular basis. Initially, I continued with the local GP, but felt he was not interested in supporting me with my health issues. His not always being available often meant I was left in the care of his practice partner. So I moved to a practice with a friend who had just been setting up. I now had a GP who was prepared to listen to me and give me the sort of level of treatment and support for my needs. In 1995, a heart attack added to my list of problems, keeping me in hospital for 3 weeks, followed closely by several bouts of pneumonia, which put me right back in hospital in 1996. I was diagnosed with COPD. Over this period, I was also under the care of the pain clinic. An IPG, an internal pain pulse generator, was installed in my spinal column in 1991. I was the second person to have it done in New Zealand. And this has helped considerably in my pain management. Over the time, I was beginning to suffer an intense pain in my left hip, and my GP arranged for me to visit my surgeon again, who informed me that the hip would need to be treated. In 1998, a Girdleston was performed, as my body was not predisposed to accepting artificial joints. And it would not have been helpful to have both his joints, to have both hip joints fused. As it was, I spent around 5 weeks in hospital because an infection flared in my leg. Around this time, my GP gave up his practice because of burnout, and I needed to find a new one, a GP who would take sole responsibility in the management of my health. My present GP was recommended to me as a sole practitioner, and I have been under his care now and guidance for the past 12 years. Not long after I started seeing him, he gave up his practice and joined a team of doctors who operated as a team, but he continued to be the sole manager of my health, and it's many varied problems. It started, I added lymphedema of my left arm and then to my right leg over the period of 3 years. Not knowing exactly what to do, my doctor referred me to the hospital. And we received a letter stating that they would not treat me for the following reasons. A, I was a male. B, I had not had a mastectomy, so I didn't qualify. They suggested I could go privately if I wanted. For the past 10 years, I've had regular bouts of cellulitis and more recently a pierced lung on 2 occasions, and in 2008, my right shoulder was fused. So now I'm a walking engineering workshop. To complicate the issues, in 2009, after having my IPG replaced, every 2 years they had to replace it because of battery, I unfortunately became infected in my spinal column, which meant the whole unit had to be taken out. It was not replaced until the following year, and that was a year from hell. Over time, a rapport has developed between my doctor and me, where we communicate regularly, mostly by email. When I got my power chair, visits to the clinic became a little harder. The hoisting of the chair slowly and laboriously into the back of my modified RAV. Being exacting, sorry. My breathing's gone. My apologies. Now I have fewer visits, and when the doctor does see me, he monitors my health with the usual blood pressure and breathing and respiratory checks, etc. If there is blood tests required, he arranges for the lab to visit me rather than me having to go out. He knows that I am aware of and understand what is happening in my body, and trusts me to alert him to any changes that may require his attention and direct involvement. This trust has become mutual. While I recognise that the use of the internet is not for everyone, in my case it works extremely well. The benefits for me are fewer visits to the medical centre, which helps keep my costs down as well, and timely intervention where there is a need. When we acquire a greater degree of trust and direct and clear communications with our GP, this helps considerably as the health professional knows and works with you. Of course, that amount had for every GP or patient. However, In my relationship, there are gains for both parties. For the GP, the freeing up of his time and fewer regular visits to the medical centre, helping to lessen the administration at the centre. One disadvantage for me is the apparent when I need a new script or maybe a visit and the doctor is away. If I do not receive any information about this and I send an email, I could theoretically have to wait until he got back. I now send emails with a read response, and if I don't get a receipt, I immediately telephone the office and the practice nurse will put me through to a doctor if need be. What could be improved in the relationship? Slowly, the old methods are changing, and in all areas of medicine, and this does not exclude GPs or patients, and the very important evolution of health sector. I firmly believe that communication must be the basis of a good health system, where there is a free exchange of information. Too often, the excuse of the Privacy Act is put forward as a means of blocking and protecting information. In my case, I feel the GP is too often left out of the loop with an issue involving a consultant. Unfortunately, I spent too much time in the hospital under the care of consultants. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate and value their expertise, but most often the GP is not himself consulted or advised. If there has been a hospital stay, then it is lucky for the GP to get a copy of the discharge summary. I make sure he at least gets a copy of mine. But these summaries are usually very sketchy, at the least, and often written by a junior doctor or an immigrant doctor whose command of English is not great. However, the greatest problem involves the visit of the consultant's off-clinic. Here, you may have a consultant or maybe his registrar, and most of the consult is verbal. Very few consultants follow up the clinic with a letter to the GP, who is expected to know intuitively what to do and what is required. By way of an example, if I had not told him, my doctor would not know that I have to take or be with oxygen for 16 hours a day. I was interested to read about the triple aim in the notes that Chris sent me about the conference, which is being trialled in New Zealand, as it does give me some hope that the communication between all parties involved in the care of a patient will enhance the expertise for not only the patient, but also all concerned in their care. Now that we have cloud technology, we have an ideal platform for advancing the use of technology in our healthcare plan. For those who don't know or have no contact with cloud technology, it offers the ability to store large amounts of data, which can be easily accessed from anything through a smartphone to a computer network. There are ethical questions that must be addressed and be debated. Who owns the data? Who should be able to access the data? And how secure is the storage? To suggest just a few. And that is the end. Thank you.